Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, June the 19th to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Abady?
Here.
Altoff?
Here.
Carpenter?
Here.
Duncan?
Here.
Mattson?
Here.
And Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City Council meeting. Second one here in June. At this time, the chair will take a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So, second.
Motion by Bill and second by Ken. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. This time, I'd like to pull item Resolution 2367, appointing a council member to fill the vacancy up, to talk on that now before we go to public input. And Resolution 2367, I would like to appoint Derek Lundell to fill the seat vacated by Leroy, to be filled up until the end of the year after the election. And I'll take a motion to appoint Derek.
Second.
I have a motion by Morris, and a second by John, to appoint Derek Lundell to fill the vacant city council seat. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. This time, Derek, if I could get you to come up, Linnell will swear you in. Or swear at you.
No,
I mean,
right
I'll
here.
swear you in.
Swear at you's more like it.
Discharge the duties of the office of council member of the city of Cannon Falls, to which I have been appointed to the best of my knowledge and ability. So help me God.
Derek, welcome, and come up and enjoy the fun. Well, welcome. All right, at this time, we will move on to item 5, which is public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Comments must be pertinent to city business and adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names may be used. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Anybody wishing to address the council this evening under public input? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. Items on this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For the folks at home, we'll read the consent agenda. Item A is adjust and correct claims for the accounting period ending June the 14th, 2018. Item B are the meeting minutes for the June 5th, 2018 City Council meeting. Item C, Resolution 2361, requesting a speed study for Goodhue County Road 17 East within Cannon Falls. Resolution 2362, accepting a donation of $150 from Gemini to the Fire Department. Item E, introduction and first reading of Ordinance 361, amending Chapter 152 of the Cannon Falls City Code, the zoning ordinance concerning the zoning map and zoning classification for a specific property. Item F, Resolution 2365, variance for 305 Cannon Street West. Item G, council chambers technology updates. Item H, appointment for Joe Garibarid to the library board. Hopefully I said that right. Gabarino.
You know,
Item I, Resolution 2366, adopting primary and general election judges for the 2018 and setting the hourly wages. Item J, appointment of Nate Watson to the Cannon Valley Trail Board. Item L, approve temporary liquor license for the VFW 4452. Item M, the rescue truck change order. And item N, fire contract, Cannon Falls Township. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down?
Yes, I'd like to bring down 6C and also 6E and F, because they're both basically related.
Okay, so C will now be 7E.
Is 7E? Isn't there already a 7E?
Should be F.
Yeah.
F. Yep.
did you bring down E or F?
Both.
Both?
They're related.
And then E and F will become items G and H.
I'd like to bring down G and N.
Ordinance 361. Which ones?
G and N.
Okay, item G will become item 7I. And N will become item 7J. Any others? Not, with the exception of the items that were removed, Chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So, second.
Motion by Bill, second by Ken. Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to council business. Item 7A is Resolution 2363, accepting proposal on the sale of $3,955,000 in general obligation bonds. And we will bring up Mr. Ullerson from
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. George Eilertson from Northland Securities. First of all, I'm impressed how quickly a nameplate was put together for a new council member. It's as if Linnell had the capability to make it right over here tonight. But in front of you, council, there's two bond sale reports. They look very much the same except for the dollar amount. So, and on your agenda, there's two resolutions, each relating to a separate bond sale that we assisted with. The first, as the mayor indicated, is Resolution 2363, and that relates to the East Side 2 bonds. And actually, at the point when a resolution is considered on the agenda, it states $3,955,000, and as you'll note on the handout, it's downsized now to $3,920,000. And I'll go into the reason why the bonds are less. But if I could just direct you to the first couple of pages, if you will, of this bond sale report. And there are extras with Linnell if others would like. As part of this bond sale, just again, due to its size, over $3 million, as we've done with the other street and utility projects that the city has undertaken in the past, we've traditionally worked on the assignment of the city's bond rating, and worked with Linnell. She prepared very well for that, and we had a rating call recently with Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's affirmed the city's AA- bond rating, and as I've mentioned to you before, any municipality that has a rating in the AA category, that's considered a very strong credit. So that's kudos to the city, certainly. On the bottom of that, it's page 2. There's a couple of the highlights of the bond rating report. I put together 3 bullet points. One indicates the strong budgetary performance with operating surpluses in the general fund. Number 2, very strong budget flexibility with an available fund balance at 73% of operating expenditures, and very strong liquidity, and that's where they take total available government cash as a percentage of your overall general fund expenditures. And so again, in those 3 categories, very strong for the city. That in combination with certainly your proximity between Rochester and the Twin Cities all factor into that assignment to the bond rating. So it's money well spent, certainly because it helps to drive down the interest rate on the bonds. On page 3, I'll just note the 2 bids that we received. We took financing bids this morning at 10:30. Robert W. Baird out of Milwaukee, they're actually the nation's largest underwriter, that being the purchaser of bonds. And you can see there's a lot of small font names mentioned underneath there. What that means is all those other firms went in together with Robert W. Baird as one bidder. And so what we do is we award based upon the far right-hand column the true interest cost. And so we compare Baird's bid at 3.21% to Stiefel Nicholas at 3.26%. So certainly Baird is the low bidder, and that's who, when you consider the bond resolution, you'd be awarding the financing bid to them. I looked back at when I attended the April 17th council meeting and gave an overview of the upcoming bond sales. And as I referenced, we've got a 3.21% true interest cost with today's bid. At that time, in mid-April, we were at about 3.37%. So interest rates lower based upon today's market. So, Mayor, Council, and I'm sorry, I'll note why the size changed from 3,955,000 down to 3,920,000. And that's a factor of how the investment bank bid. Not to get into too much detail here, but on page 6 of the handout is the pricing summary. And please note in the middle of the page there's two columns. One is the coupon, and that's the interest rate that the city makes their debt service payments based upon. To the right of that is the yield, and that's the market today. That's the market for AA- rated bonds. And so the difference is the spread between the coupon and the yield. And investors in the current bond market pay a premium to earn at the higher rate. So that premium that they pay comes into the bond issue as revenue for the city. And so what we do is we use that revenue to buy down the bond issue. You still net the same dollar amount for project-related expenses. It's just you have an additional revenue source. You have that bond premium. So that's why we're reducing the size of the bonds, Council. Mayor or Council, any questions relating to the 2018 A bonds?
Anybody have any questions? And that would be for resolution, for the first resolution, correct?
And we-
That's right, 2363.
Do we have a motion to approve it, accepting the proposal? So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Cedar, second by Bill, to accept Resolution 2363 for the general obligation bonds for East Side 2. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you, Council. The second handout that I have for you relates to a fire truck financing, and much smaller financing, $359,000. General obligation equipment certificates. So this is Series 2018B, and for this financing, as we discussed in the past, that we, due to the size of the financing, for one, we didn't work with your bond rating because it's the cost of adding the rating. There wouldn't have been the benefit, if you will, due to the shorter term and the smaller principal amount on the debt. And we worked with the local banks. We sent the information out to the 3 local banks, had good discussions with them, provided them with the audit, a term sheet for the financing, et cetera. On the day of sale, we did have discussion with 2 banks, but one bank, Merchants Bank, was the firm that provided a bid. They provided an interest rate of 4% for the financing. So, Council, that's the bank you would be awarding the bid to by approving the resolution. And again, the fire truck financing here. And if you have any questions, I can certainly address that.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2364?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Morris. Is that Ken?
Yes.
Second by Ken to approve Resolution 2364, approving the $360,000 general obligation endorsement certificate. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain. I'm the director at Merchants Bank.
So passes 5-0, one abstainment.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
That's good.
Okay. That moves us on to item 7C, which is sustained natural fertilizer. Blaze?
Hi. I'm Blaze Holden with Sustained Natural Fertilizer.
How are you tonight?
Doing all right. How about you?
Good, good. Well, I think we're talking a little bit about some odor issues.
Right.
What can you tell us?
Well, obviously we've been here for a long time. I think we're the oldest business in the industrial park. We dehydrate compost. We make organic fertilizers that we ship around the country and around the world. And through that process, there's an exhaust system that emits the water vapors from our drying process. And if the conditions are not, or the operation is not functioning properly, we can get some burning of the material that's going into the dryer, not the compost, but the granular material that goes into the fertilizers. And that will produce a smoke that obviously is a nuisance odor and has led to some complaints. We've been, had some issues off and on over the years. Up until the past year or so, things had been pretty good. We hadn't received much complaints at all. And about a year ago, we had a burner on our dryer that failed. And that process, while the burner was failing and while we were diagnosing the problem, was leading to additional burning and a small increase in odor complaints. About a year ago, we replaced that burner. We put a new one in, and we were very hopeful that that would eliminate much of the problem. And unfortunately, that was not the case. We've had a difficult time getting the settings right on the new burner and making the adjustments to the system. The previous burner was built in 1962. The new one was brand new. And it just has been a difficult time for us to make that burner work with our system. Since receiving the complaints over the last few months, we've made significant changes to those settings. We've made changes to the operating procedures. We've tried to be very responsive to odor complaints. If there's an issue, we try to address it right away. And I don't know if you guys have seen it yet or not, but we have seen a significant reduction in complaints over the last month. So we're hopeful that we're moving in the right direction. We are aware that there's more work to be done. We're trying to limit the worst of the problem right now, and then we've hired an engineering firm that specializes in these types of drying operations to help us come up with a more permanent long-term solution. So happy to answer any questions, but in long story short, that's where we're at right now.
I went on your website, Blaze, and It says that your product is quality controlled at an EPA permitted composting facility, but are these, is there quality assurances that you got the same thing for your emissions too?
Well, so the compost site has an EPA permit. The manufacturing plant does not. All of the the EPA doesn't regulate odors, and so all of the emissions from our facility are well below any type of threshold that would require any type of permit. There aren't chemicals or hazardous things being emitted from the facility, so we aren't required to have a air quality permit. So, we certainly have pollution control equipment, quality assurance plans and that sort of thing, and operating procedures, but we don't have an EPA permit for the facility as it's not required.
It says on the website that you've got an in-house chemistry lab for, to test your product, but can't that be used to kind of test your emissions too?
Not that same lab, certainly can't be used. That's a fertilizer lab for testing nutrients in the fertilizer. And so that doesn't really apply to, the dryer operation and the process operation. We don't like the issue more than anybody else does. It's something we take very seriously, and it leads to a stressful environment around the manufacturing plant, obviously, as the operators are trying to control it. So I wish I could say it's as simple as buying some unit that's just going to make all the problems go away. Hopefully we can find something like that does, but it's proven to be much more complicated than just some simple known solution. It's a unique process we've developed ourselves over the years, and continue to try to improve and need to improve further.
Are you accountable to a state or a federal EPA?
Well, we're certainly, regulated by the, Minnesota Clean Air Act, and the EPA obviously would have, or the MPCA would have jurisdiction over us if there was any type of pollution violation. But that, to my understanding, has never been what we've been talking about. It's all been related to odor. So, the MPCA has certainly been out to our facility many times. They've looked at the exhaust system. We do have obviously stormwater permits that's done by the MPCA, but we don't have we're not required to have an air quality permit. And the MPCA has reviewed that information and has not disagreed with us.
Well, I personally received a lot of complaints at my house and from residents, and it's not just residents in Cannon Falls proper, it was northeast and west of your plant.
Right.
That are complaining, and I just thought I had an EPA number I was going to call, but I did just get a busy signal off there.
Sure.
I don't know if there's a contact you could give Linnell or something where we could actually call and see what they've done about it. So
we could certainly look into that.
Yeah.
I know that they have received complaints from time to time as well. Once in a great while, they've called up and said we received a complaint about odor or stopped out, but we can look for those contacts.
Well, if you've got a contact, if you could give it to Linnell, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, didn't we have some odor testing equipment?
Yeah, 2 years
I mean,
ago, I believe.
They
there
got
was-
it too, I
I
think.
mean,
Don't-
you got that also?
Well, we have some equipment to monitor the odor, and that was done at the time when the city had hired some consultants to do a study. And so we cooperated and participated in that study and purchased one of the units for ourselves and came to the training that the city received, and we received the same training to monitor the odor. We did not ever receive the report from that, and I think that would be helpful. We had requested it several times upon completion, but we're never given it. So, we try to be as responsive as we can, and the more information that we have, the better we can respond to it. And you know, we do, it's as little fun as it is, we do appreciate getting notifications from Linnell or others. If they tell us when there was a complaint, what direction it was coming from, it helps us out a lot in terms of identifying what we need to do differently to eliminate those types of complaints.
Well, I mean, we've got the equipment too, right, Jeff?
Yes, Mayor, we still have the equipment. Sustain purchased it at the same time. Actually, when we were doing some of the site visits with the consultant, they were out there at the same time using their equipment. Essentially, it helped to pinpoint and verify the type of odor. I don't think we'd be disagreeing, you know, that we were able to, through that process, to, you know, isolate that it was likely coming from the production the majority of the time. And I think that helped you guys in tweaking your system, because if I remember, after we got done with that, with the changes you made, you know, the amount of complaints significantly dropped off.
Right. Yeah, the device attempts to quantify the intensity of the odor. That's what it does. So it allowed us to try to monitor at our property line if it's detectable and what the intensity is, and we can try to take appropriate action.
I mean, do you guys have a website, or, I mean, on your website, do you have a place where people could report?
No, we don't currently, and that's a good idea. We did set up a phone number that people could call in, and then that forwards a message to the operators so that, you know, in real time or in the middle of the night or on weekends or something, if there's ever a complaint and nobody's at the office to receive a phone call, we do get those messages, but we don't have something currently on the website. But, you know, I think that would be a reasonable idea.
I mean, anything you guys can do to help that part of it, I mean, so our citizens can report
Yep.
it, and then the MPCA, I mean, if they have to get involved, I mean, at that point, you know, we can do what we've got to do there, I mean, but we
Yep.
appreciate you guys trying to work it out, I mean, as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's our full intention, and, you know, when we get the information, we certainly respond to it. You know, we obviously don't need any kind of personal information, we just want to know the direction relative to our facility and the time of day, and that allows us to go back at our operating records or talk to the operators and try to figure out, you know, what specifically was going on.
I have two questions. First is, who does have a copy of the report?
That I don't know. Aaron would have been the administrator at that time, and I don't know what.
Does anyone have any reason to think we couldn't share it with Sustain? Okay.
I believe it
so
would have been a
let's-
public document. I
Right.
don't know
so
why.
let's- Right, so we're in agreement that that should be shared with you. 'cause
Yeah,
you're
that
right,
would be helpful.
Those would be useful
Sure.
data points as
Yeah,
we
I
continue
think
to
so.
work, yeah.
Yep.
Second, you said you hired an engineering firm to help you manage your own special process. So this engineering firm will have to understand your process first, which
Yep.
they won't have a basis for.
Well, you know, as a matter of fact, the engineering firm was the company that originally helped us design the process in the late 1980s.
Okay.
They've subsequently been purchased by a larger company, but some of the same people are still there, and we've been in contact with them over the years. So they haven't seen our facility in many years, and so they will have to, you know, do a site visit, understand our process. But their business is in developing drying systems for poultry manure processors, so it's
Okay,
pretty specific to
This
what we do.
is their wheelhouse.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you have no expectation that it would take them a particularly long time, or they would say, we don't know, your process is so complicated, we can't possibly help you?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I'm hopeful that they've seen problems in other locations and know of solutions that we don't know of.
And you
so.
have that agreement already in place? them?
Yeah, we have the agreement in place. There's no contract, but we've contacted them. They're working on an action plan, and it's starting with a site visit, so.
Do you have any kind of ETA of when a site visit may occur? Ballpark?
Well, we certainly, you know, want it to happen as soon as possible this summer, absolutely.
Okay.
But it just depends on when they can schedule the time to get out. They're a Wisconsin company.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else? I mean, I think you guys are trying. I mean, it's not an easy process, and you guys have been putting up with it for a lot of years. I mean, and you know, just keep it up, and you know, we'll try to work with you. I mean, if people have complaints, you know, make sure they call you guys, and if you guys can get something on the website, you know, where people can say, hey, you know, we smelt it and it was coming from this direction. Anything will help. you know, so that you guys can try to improve the process and make it even better.
Yep.
But
Also,
real-
For the record, no one's ever going to get anyone from the EPA on the phone. They're completely gutted at that institution. But the MPCA is not. They're thriving. I mean, they've had some cutbacks, but that's who you'd be able to get
Only
on the
get a
phone if
busy
you wanted
signal on
to.
the EPA.
Well, the EPA is not, they're not answering calls from Minnesota, from Cannon Falls, Minnesota today. Like, I don't know if they have, they're dealing with their director. But the MPCA is very responsive.
Right.
So, go for it.
So we appreciate you coming in tonight and taking the time and letting us know what's going on out
Yep,
there so
yep.
we can, you know, try to get people answers and just keep us informed and, you know, and if we can find that report, if not, contact the company and see if they got a copy of it, that we can get another copy of it and get it to you guys.
Yep. Well, we certainly appreciate, you know, you working with us. We've been here for a long time and would certainly like to be a, you know, good, responsible neighbor and good, important part of the business community. So it's certainly our intention to resolve the issue.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on to item 7D, which is the July 3rd meeting discussion. And
Can we move that to the 10th or?
Yeah, this was brought up at the last city council meeting and whether or not the city council wanted to consider either canceling the July 3rd meeting completely and just holding one meeting in July, which would then be July 17th, or to set a different date as an alternate date, or keep the date on the 3rd if you wanted to. It's not a legal holiday. We can meet that day if we so choose, but there are a lot of activities in town that day, so.
Can we hold it at the fair?
We have in the past, but we were not invited this year.
Well, the only reason I want a meeting is I'm working at the fair.
So let you just, it's one, like, we'll make it 1 hour. You can work at the fair, stop in, we'll have the meeting at the fair.
the pavilions, I think, is already booked, I mean, that
We
day
got
for that.
I looked into that. We've got bands playing the pavilion.
I mean, we.
I don't
we've
know where
canceled
we'd
in the
have it
past.
over there.
I mean, do we have something that's going to be pressing that we know of that we possibly need to meet? If not, we can always push it out.
Let's
You know,
be in
to
the
the following
building where
Monday
the
or
baked
Tuesday.
goods are and snack at the same time. This is all, these are solutions, guys. Well, I know.
I don't know of anything pressing for that agenda at this time.
I mean, it's up to you guys.
I move we cancel it altogether and only meet on the 17th, or whatever the other date is, later in the month.
17th.
I'll
We've done
second.
that in the past.
Okay, I have a motion by Cedar and a second by Ken to not hold the July 3rd meeting and meet only on the 17th in July.
Because the fair doesn't want us.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, the
Carried.
fair watch it. It's just a bad night.
Well, if you wanted us, you would have set the place aside and held it for us.
Okay. All right, moves us on to item 7E, hiring the Public Works Director. Linnell?
Yes, a subcommittee of the Personnel Committee met last week and did interviews with 5 candidates for the Public Work Director position and came up with a recommendation of hiring Mike Altoff as our Public Works Director, and that we are requesting approval of that appointment this evening. It would be subject to the satisfactory completion of a background check.
Everyone has a copy of the information in their package, and where he would start and the vacation and all that information's in there. Some good interviews, and after going through it all, I think everybody on the panel felt that he was the best fit for the direction we want to go.
Yeah, and I would say that also being on that panel, Mike certainly scored the highest, and had a little bit of a learning curve on some certain things, but I think very good choice for the city. Yes. And I will make a motion that we approve the hiring of Mike Altoff as Public Works Director.
I'll second it.
A motion by Bill and a second by Morris to hire Mike Altoff as the new Public Works Director.
Subject to successful
Subject-
completion of a
Yes.
background check.
Yep, subject to completion of a background check. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes 5-0, one abstention.
Thank you very much for the appointment. I was shocked actually to get the offer. I knew there was some competition, and I was glad to get it. I worked here full-time up to about 4 years ago when I took a job at the city of Rochester, and I've missed being here ever since. So I'm happy to be back, and looking forward to all the fun tasks ahead. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike?
All right, that moves us on to item 7F, which is the speed study.
Okay, I brought that down because I think there was some confusion. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, you had something on the police website saying, indicating it might be up, or Facebook, excuse me.
Yeah, Lieutenant Berg posted the information up on the Police Department Facebook page. Essentially, it's a long, complicated process, and what he posted was much simpler. But essentially, the city, because it's a county road, we don't have jurisdiction or control to begin with. Secondary to that, statutorily, we have limits on what we can set speed limits. So, for example, a city street under our control, we can set a lower than 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, but we cannot set one lower than 25 miles an hour. And Councilor Duncan, you've been on long enough. You recall, going down to the treatment plant, we had it posted at one time at 20. Mm-hmm. It was not enforceable. The majority of people drove close to that, but if they weren't, we couldn't issue a citation because it wasn't a legal posted speed limit. So we changed that a few years ago up to 25, which then allowed us to do enforcement on it. In this case, when the development and the assistant director for the county highway department sent me some background information yesterday on this. When that development went in 2000, the city and county made a petition to the state for a speed study. The state's reply was essentially, there's nothing there yet, and so there's no need for a study. Contact us down the road. Apparently they made another request in 2005, but County Highway cannot find that any actions came of that request. Both of those predate my coming here. Since being here, it's always been an issue. When I arrived, we had a few residents out there. It certainly is growing. We're seeing a lot more kids traversing that area. This leads to the Facebook posting. The comments back that we've received are that yes, they'd like to see the speed lowered, but they really would like something that separates the pedestrians, the bikers, from the roadway. And when Commissioner Anderson spoke with me about this, I informed her that I know prior to him sitting on the county board, the city had approached the county about looking at a walking path that would connect along to the one that's already on 17. But I believe the county board had zero interest in expending any currency for that. And I don't know where it went. I think they looked at maybe some grant applications for safe routes and stuff, but that money then dried up. I don't know if it's back or not. So when Commissioner Anderson spoke with me relative to what you guys have before you tonight, it was in context of he'd had received complaints about the speed. People wanted to have it lowered, but he has to start with us. Right. And so that's why you see the document in front of you requesting approval for the resolution to request that they request the study.
Right. And I remember us looking at different possibilities of pedestrian bike paths.
Yep.
I lived out that way for a number of years, so I know that it is a very dangerous situation. But I just want to make clear for, and I think a few of you folks are here tonight regarding this, what we're being asked tonight is to request a speed study for that stretch. And then, if I understand correctly, if we do that and it comes back then we can try and maybe have some citizen input on what they'd like to see done?
Relative to the speed study, probably almost
Well,
zero.
I'm
But
referring
yes,
to,
walking path or some sort of
Right,
trail
for
connection or something.
pedestrians, so.
Yes, I mean, that's always an option that could run parallel to this if, the council and commissioners chose to do that. What this would do would be request MnDOT, who has the statutory control over the speeds, to conduct a study. But as a caveat, we can't guarantee that they're going to grant it. In fact, they could come back and say, we looked at more than just that section, and in fact, the 30-mile-an-hour section we think should be 45. They have that authority within their purview. I wouldn't expect them to look outside of the 55 zone, but it's MnDOT, and I give absolutely no guarantees what they do.
well, for anybody that's driven out there, when you see that end 30 zone, it's a signal to start revving it up to 55, 60,
Yes.
and that's,
Oh, irregardless, if the county someday puts in a walking path, I'm glad this study's moving forward because that area's built up and there's a lot of people walking. You drive that speed limit should be a lot less than what it is.
I think it's certainly appropriate to make the request. I have no idea if they would drop it to 30, if they do a transition where you'd go from 55 outside of the city to, a 40 or 45 to the 30. But, anything would be an improvement over 55 in that zone.
it would be nice to see a 30 out to
I would love to see it out to Sunflower.
Court, and
Yep.
then,
30 to Sunflower Court, sounds right.
well, anyway, that's why I brought it down, because I wanted to make sure that, I knew there had been some question for the citizens, gee, could they show up tonight and talk about that? That's not what this was for.
No, essentially, he was just trying to make sure that people were informed that, it's one of those areas that we're looking at. And in this case, the action before council is a resolution requesting that. The commissioners already stated that once they get this, they'll move their process forward. I expect he wouldn't have made a request if they weren't going to also make a request. And then from there, it'll go to MnDOT. The last one I was looking at, they made the request midsummer, and they had a response back in October that they weren't going to do it. So I would expect that, we would be looking at probably about the same timeline. We should, by this fall, have heard from MnDOT. If MnDOT decides to conduct the study, they really won't give us any advance notice on it. They just go out and do it because they don't want anything to influence those results of the study.
Okay, and with that, I'll,
Well, I've talked to Commissioner Anderson before you get there. I've talked to him a few times about this also. And they really want to try to get this done. And for those folks that live out that way, continue to bend his ear about the walking paths and everything out there so that maybe they can get it put on the county's agenda moving forward to try to get some of those paths out there also, so.
Can the city put it on an agenda?
And we could bring it up here. I mean, we could put it on an agenda here, but I mean, if it could be a county and a city thing together on that, because the county has to spend the money because it's outside the city limits, correct?
right, because it depends on where you would put a pedestrian path or a bike path. If it's within county right-of-ways, we need their cooperation. If it's solely within the city, then us as a council, park board or public works would have more of a say on that.
And we can work together with them and see what we got to do to try to get something done.
The city should put it on the agenda. Someone's gonna get killed there.
I agree.
I agree.
We can put an agenda item together to talk about it.
Yeah, can you come
Okay,
forward,
come
please?
forward to the mic, please.
Ken was a bad example there, of the way we tolerate public comment, but that's cool.
My name is Ken Allen. I live out that way.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
And there's two developments out there, two waves of the development. I know the first development is within the city limits. So I don't know about the second one.
Yes, that is within the city limits.
That's in its also.
Yeah,
So.
Cannon 1 and Cannon 2.
Okay, I wasn't sure where the dividing line was, but I mean, I realize that it's not, you're not asking for input, but it's very important that the study is done. We lived out there for 15 plus years. There's 25 approximately houses that live out in that road. Little kids, I run in the morning up and down that road. That's the only way to get to town. There's not an option. So the speed is a big deal. There's a hill coming over, like you said earlier, they see that 30-mile-an-hour sign and they're gone. So, I mean, I think it's really important to push whatever we can, speed study, whatever, so.
And he's correct in, you know, in the speeds out there. The other problem we face is if you look at the road design, one, the shoulders aren't very wide, but then they drop very significantly.
Yeah.
So, you know, people that are running, kids biking, there really isn't a lot of room for them to move off very far from the roadway edge.
Yeah, you got about a 150-yard stretch there where you got almost
Yep.
a vertical drop.
Yep. And, you know, so I mean, looking at it, you have the county right away, and then the way that lays out, you essentially have private property that butts right up to it. We don't have any buffers that I'm aware of. So I think our easements run the opposite direction around to tie in closer to the river, don't they?
Because we had talked about a path, but it would require getting some homeowners' cooperation.
Yes,
to
buy-in
weave
and, yeah.
back in there to connect up with Cannon Bluffs 1.
Yep.
Because we
I
got
know they
trail.
looked at a couple of different options,
Yeah.
even one before I arrived.
Well, let's put that as an agenda item to discuss and figure out what we can possibly do out there to start looking at it.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2361 for the speed study.
Second.
Motion by Bill, second by Cedar, to approve Resolution 2361. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moves us on to item 7G, which is ordinance 361.
Yeah, I brought both those items relating to Raw Bistro, some concerns we have, and maybe Sam, you can address this. I know the neighbors have had some issues with the loud fan noise that they use for their process.
Well,
Yes.
I will say, before Sam talk, the planning commission, man, we did have a problem with this. First of all, we okayed the variance, and we did recommend the rezoning with reservations, and maybe Derry, you can, while you're on the planning commission too, because we had problems with semis loading there in off hours and also the noise from the fan.
Yep.
They do have a trailer in the parking lot now that makes a noise, but what they're proposing to build is a freezer, and it's gonna have a fan on it too. So we've kind of asked Barb Green, the owner of Raw Bistro, to maybe give us decibel levels on the fan. So we had neighbors there that were complaining about the noise.
Yep, so the rezoning was approved by the Planning Commission subject to Raw Bistro and Pat Green supplying us with some more solid information on the decibel levels, what the noise is really going to sound like. Because like John said, we have had some complaints from neighbors regarding the existing temporary trailer that most of us have probably seen there. So with this tonight, we have not gotten anything solid from them regarding the noise levels. It was kind of short notice. Or we also have some representatives here tonight. Justin.
I don't even know if I'm supposed to come up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
So, yeah, this is Justin with Raw Bistro. So
Justin Magnuson, I'm with Raw Bistro. Pat just asked me to come stand in for her tonight. She's out of town. We did get some information back from John Reister over at Reister's Refrigeration. Nothing that explicitly says it's going to be this decibel level, but basically it's just a document that states that he doesn't see any issue. He's been in the business for 43 years, and based on the layout of how we would have it set up, if anything, it's looking to be like it would be a lower decibel level than it is today. So I don't know if you'd like to see any of this information, or...
Sam.
I can take it.
Okay.
I have a question for you. I know there had been some talk in the past of someone putting together a building in the industrial zone with refrigeration that I know that Rob Bistro was potentially interested in, Lawrence Meats, and John Peterson at the turkey farm. And did you guys ever get into any depth with maybe?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I know there were conversations around putting in a freezer warehouse in that area, which, you know, we would support. I mean, we would definitely use it. We're, you know, in our business, freezer space is always the issue. You know, whether it's us or Lawrence or Ferndale, I think they're all in the same situation where in order to keep the products in a good quality format, they need to stay frozen, and we only have so much space for that. So
I got the impression at the planning commission that Pat wanted to build a refrigeration unit there.
Yeah, we do.
Is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was mentioned about.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Cooperative.
that was in the past. I mean,
Yeah, cooperative effort out in the industrial.
Yep.
So what you handed Sam, that's all you have? I guess Sam will have to report later on what.
Yeah, I can kind of, so the big document is just kind of their site, their layout plan, kind of what I would need for, almost for a building permit, kind of. The letter is from John Reister, Reister Refrigeration, and it says that with the addition of the new freezer, the condenser units would not exceed the noise levels of what has been there for 30 years, not including the semi-trailer that is there now. So any noise that's created by the semi-trailer would go away. Any noise that was there prior to the semi-trailer being put there, it would probably be around the same levels, but there were very few, if any, noise complaints at that time before the trailer was put there.
Now, is the fans, will that be facing out over the river?
So the way the layout would be is, yeah, so there's always been, number one, there's always been fans on the back of the building or compressor units. With the build out of the new freezer, it would actually be tucked into a corner. So kind of basically in a U shape where the building would form, the compressors would be tucked back in there.
I only ask that because I know there's construction of some townhomes just across the river there.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
He was at another meeting
Oh,
with
he
them.
was? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, that pretty much answered my questions, so I'll.
I mean, I know that, you know, when the trailer first went in, it was really loud. I mean, and I know that Raw Bistro and Pat Green worked with David Olson to build the thing that's in front of it now to try to help muffle. And I know that.
Yeah, it definitely helped, but you know, it's not a perfect solution.
It's not a perfect fix, I mean, but it's something. I mean, but you guys have tried.
Yep.
On that part of it.
So right now, the requested council action is to approve with the condition that specifications on noise levels generated by the new addition be provided prior to the second reading. Do we have that?
Correct.
That
So,
condition's been satisfied?
yes, that condition has been satisfied, so we still have to have the first and second reading, but
Right.
rezoning,
Yeah, second
this would just be a.
Right. I'm just clarifying what the requested
Confirmation
council action is at this point,
Yep.
given the new information.
Yep, so the
Very good.
condition goes.
Well, with that, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 361.
A motion by Bill.
Second.
Who was that?
Ken.
Second by Ken. To approve the introduction and first reading of ordinance 361, amending Chapter 152 of the Cannon Falls City Code. The zoning ordinance concerning the zoning map and zoning classification for specific property. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That moves us on to item 7H, which is Resolution 2361.
Just have a quick
Or
question.
65, I should say.
I see it's like $30,000 of tech equipment. Is that was that in the budget?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
Cable Commission's paying for it.
Are we out of order there, Robbie?
Yeah.
I thought this was
Oh.
You've got two connected to.
Right, I
Right,
had the
though.
two that
Yeah.
I.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You've got,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
go ahead,
No,
sorry.
no, and I just pulled down both because they were both connected. I didn't want to end up a possibility of not approving one and approving
Right.
the other. That would create a problem.
Right.
So I'll just make the motion to approve resolution number 2365 for the variance for Raw Bistro.
Second.
motion by Bill and a second by Cedar to approve Resolution 2365 for the variance for 305 Cannon Street West. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to 7I, which is the chamber.
Well, I was just curious, it was like a $30,000 worth of, was it in the budget? Was it all?
There is a budget, and Mike will tell you what's really going on.
Okay,
Timing.
good timing.
The short answer is yes. Yep,
Okay.
we budgeted this year for all the technology upgrades. So we did the first round, which was back in the studio here, and this round is this room here. So yep,
Very
it's
good.
all from the cable television fund.
Okay, that's all I want. I'd make a motion, we accept the tech updates.
I'll second.
A motion by John, second by Morris to approve the council chambers technology updates. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item 7J, which is the fire contract. Cannon Falls Township. John?
I hadn't seen the contract, but it was in the amended minutes tonight, but I was just to see that everything was up and up with the townships.
Yeah, so this is it's a process we go through about every 5 years. We re-up our contracts, and it's across the board. So this is the first one for Cannon Falls Township. This is the unique one that we have, that we do all 36 sections in the whole township. The rest of them, there's 6 or 7 other townships we work with. They all fall under a rural fire association, so we negotiate and deal with them to handle, because we don't cover all of the township, just sections in them. So this one is pretty standard upgrade to the contract. We went 2% every year for 5 years to get a 10% increase by the end of it. The amounts are in there on what you see and what they pay throughout the year. And yeah, we did do a few language changes that the city attorney recommended, just to kind of free up some liability language they thought they saw in it from the last time they'd seen this. So that was pretty standard. I did have the State Fire Marshal's office, our representative, look at it as well. They kind of help in deciding what your contract should say and what you should cover versus off your apparatus, and he called it a top-tier contract with the amounts and how we worded it, so he was pretty happy with it and made no recommendations either, so.
And you raised the per call.
Yep, so we can bill them a little bit more per call too, just to recoup some of the expenses, per call. And that usually all goes, we get a lot of questions on that. People worry about a bill when we go out. 99% of the time that gets covered under their insurance policies. The insurance company, they have a deductible for that just gets covered, and they don't see that actual bill. And me and Linnell work with that mostly, and we kind of between us try to just bill their insurance companies if we can. We don't want to kick too many people when they're down after a huge loss and then slap another $750 bill on them if we can't. But I don't think we've ever not really gotten paid by the insurance companies, so we've been pretty lucky with that.
At least we're not like some communities where if you don't pay in, you don't get any fire service and it burns
Right.
to the ground.
Right, so there are some different areas around the country as far as how they negotiate their contracts and how they get coverage. So we're pretty lucky around here. We've got good mutual aid agreements with all the other departments around to kind of set a good boundary line to get the closest truck there and things like that. And it does have a clause in there too, if it's a non-resident of that township, if they have a fire, or there's a vehicle or something like that, we can bill up to 100% of the costs to them since they're not a taxpayer in that township. So if we do have some kind of a incident that doesn't involve a resident of that township, we can bill fully for the expenses on that as well. So we can recoup that.
I'm glad you got it resolved, so I just wanted to bring it up. And I'd make a motion that we accept the fire contract with Cannon Falls Township.
Motion by John, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Morris to approve the fire contract with Cannon Falls Township as presented. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moves us to reports. Greg?
Yeah, we've getting started on the east side project. They reclaimed the east half of the project today. They're going to be cutting trees down tomorrow, the ones that have pink ribbons on them. And they're setting up temporary water. That's the blue pipe in the front yards. And Monday they'll start digging by the park in Oak Street, or in Minnesota Street between Oak, and start working their way east towards the school.
Greg, I got a question on that. Some of the alleys are being done also, correct? Now, what about, I had one individual ask me, and I believe they brought to the city's attention, where they have a tree that's right on the alley and their property. How does that get handled? Because I know they're having sewer problems, I believe.
I think that those individuals we talked to at the meeting last week, we had an open house for the residents last Thursday, and we're working with them. They're going to probably work with the contractor to replace their service line because they've got root issues because of that tree.
Right, exactly.
So that'll go.
Does the tree then have to come down, or, and whose expense will that be?
That'll be part of the project cost.
Okay, all right. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Well, summer reading's going pretty well. We had our first summer story time today. It was a lot of fun. It was the first story time I got to do in the past year, so I had fun. And then I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update about what's going on with the building. Greg and I have been working on getting some studies done to find out more about the leaking. He got the report back yesterday, so then we'll see more about that pretty soon. But then, like, there are some other issues going on with the building, like the staff entrance door. Like, I'm looking at having to get a new panic bar because I've had to have it repaired 3 times since I started here because it just keeps getting loose and it gets really difficult to leave. So there are just some issues still. But we're working on it.
What about the back parking lot where it seems to drain to the building?
We've had a lot of conversations about that.
Yeah,
recently.
and I've heard a lot about it too.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's being definitely addressed with a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's.
Who are we having looking at that door? Do we have somebody looking at it, or?
Yeah, I got a quote from Red Wing Glass for $851 for a new panic bar today.
Okay, I mean, is that going to fix the problem, or do we need to look at the whole door situation instead of doing just one thing? Do we want to look at the whole situation and see if we need to rip out and replace the door?
That's a good question. I think this would be the what would solve the problem.
I mean, is this the first time this has happened, or do we know
My
that?
staff have told me that the panic bar has been going on for a few years,
Yeah, but it's never been replaced?
never been replaced.
Mayor, I received the invoice from the locksmith that did the repair on it.
The other day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We serve as the primary contact for him, so he just emailed it to me.
Okay.
But he made a note in there that he's going to be working up a price for a new panic bar, replacing that panic bar.
Yeah, I'm getting.
I know they've had some issues with it. There's been some repairs done through Public Works, through outside people. I don't know how many times we've had, contractors that have come in after, that went out of warranty. I think the door structurally would probably be sound, if I remember right from last time I was down there looking at it when they were looking at replacing locks. I would say that, if the panic bar itself continues to loosen up, a replacement panic bar will probably solve that. And whatever vendor, I think that would be just a product of getting the bids and making a decision and acting.
I just want to make sure that we're not going to just start kicking a can down the road and trying to go back and forth with stuff.
No,
We've had enough problems with the place.
Yeah, when you recall, we had some lost keys and went through quite a process on getting that redone. So I went down and looked at the locks and the doors and trying to figure out what the best course of action would be with the locksmith. And from what he indicated, everything was structurally sound.
Mm-hmm.
He did identify that panic bar issue, but it had recently been fixed by somebody that had done that already, repair already. So that wasn't addressed at that time.
Okay.
He just did the locks.
That's
Yeah,
good.
Okay.
and so I feel like the kicking the can would be just keep replacing the panic bar, or keep
Right.
repairing the panic bar, but don't replace it. I think replacement will do the trick, and that's what I'm being told by the
That's why we want to
professionals.
make sure when we get it fixed, so we're not having to do it over and over and over again.
Exactly. I don't want to have to do it over and
You know,
over.
it's like the card at nickels and dimes. We don't need it.
Right. So, yeah, that's basically it. I thought I'd give you an update about that. And then as we get the reports about the leaking issue, then we'll be able to tell you some more about where that's going to go.
Okay.
All right.
Sam?
Nothing, thank you.
Chief?
A couple of things, as council already decided to cancel the meeting for the 2nd, which will be right in the middle of the fair. With that, we're looking for a lot of activity. I talked a little bit about the parade route last time. I don't know if John's going to touch on this time. I'll leave that to him. But last year we had a new problem with the fair, and the problem was they just attracted too many darn people. They ran out of parking spots. And so we accommodated them last year, putting vehicles up in the grassy area around the hockey rink. This year, we may have the same problem, and I just wanted to make sure council had no problems with us, if necessary, working with the park board to, or fair board, excuse me, to accommodate any lack of parking they may have on their facility, utilizing some of the park space that's around to put cars on. We didn't have any problem damage-wise. If it's raining, that type of thing, we'd make a judgment on that. But I just want to make sure that you don't have any issues with the police department, working with them to resolve if there are any problems. I don't think there's an action needed, just a consensus to know that you're comfortable with how we handled it.
I just think, if we can work together to get through the problem, come up with the right solution, that's what we need to do.
And that's what we will do then. Thank you very much.
Linnell?
I just wanted to give you a couple of election reminders. We have election season coming up. Tonight we approved the election judges list for us to choose from. With that, absentee voting for the primary election begins on June 29th. Candidate filing for the city council seats is from July 31st to August 14th. The primary again is August 14th. The general election is November 6th. And I just also wanted to give you a heads up that for the July 17th city council meeting, I will be out of state. Dave Maroney will be here in my place.
Well, first, Mike, I want to welcome you aboard. I know we didn't mention it, but your start date would be August 6th. Just one question for you on that. As you're also the fire chief, and I know you guys do training on Tuesday nights, will that cause a problem for you?
No, we usually we get started right now. 7:30 is usually our start time, but we get enough hours in and extra trainings. I'll hit all my
And I mean, I know you
mandatory
have
stuff.
a training officer.
Yep. Yeah, they're leading it right now. So yep, I'll go join them as soon as we're done here. So. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. And Derek, I want to welcome you aboard.
Thank you.
Yep.
Peter?
Let's see. One thing, we wanted to do a sort of formal correction of a mistake of fact that unfortunately got entered into the public record. So there was some talk when we talked about parking around town about the width of Hoffman Street after it was redone. And there was at the time a statement made that we believed the width had not changed and that curb, not curb, gutter, not gutter, whatever, but that the width had remained the same at 36 feet. That is not a fact. That was a mistake of fact. It's in fact now 32 feet, so 4 feet of street width were lost during that construction period. So we just wanted to correct that because we know there are people who live on Hoffman who are probably living there before and after the construction and can appreciate that the street got more narrow and probably did not appreciate hearing us say, no, you're wrong and you're not thinking of it right. So just wanted to correct that. It was a mistake. We have corrected it. Not this width of the street, obviously, but our records. And then secondly, at Public Works, we talked about Hardwood Way, which runs behind the soccer fields, right? Yeah.
about
Okay.
that answer, yeah.
And it's half the township and half the cities. And we haven't had any grade 5. Am I saying that right? Grade 5, whatever. Anyways, substance laid down. Class 5, thank you. It has to be graded. It's class 5. Sorry. Anyways, the Public Works Commission would recommend that we accept the bid from Anderson Rock and Lime to install 3 inches worth of class 5 with water, chloride, and packed and have it graded at the total expense of $9,375, which would be split evenly between ourselves and the township. Have I said that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the unanimous recommendation of the Public Works Commission. We're bringing it to you. We don't know if this would come out of Public Works money or the city.
Public Works, I'd say.
Right, and I don't even know if we need council action on it for that reason.
The road.
General maintenance, said if it's in the budget, would not necessarily need.
So we're okay, okay. All right, well then just fully illuminating, that's what we'll be doing. And that is all, thank you.
Do we need a motion in that?
What's that?
Do we need a
No.
motion?
No,
No.
because it's, yeah, Public Works money, they can do what they
General
want.
maintenance.
It's time to give my plug for the fair. The 103rd Fair is coming to town July 1 through 4. Bigger and better than ever. We've got tractor pulls, we got demolition derbies, we got bands going all the time. And we got harness racing on the 4th, and all concludes with a gigantic fireworks display at 10 o'clock on the 4th. But I do want to reemphasize again the parade route. Now, because of the East Side project, we're going to start the parade at Bell and 4th Street like we did in the old days until we switched. And just to make the residents in that area aware, we're going to be blocking off Bell Street, east and west, and 2nd Street from Bell probably to Lindahl Tire. In that neighborhood, we're going to have no parking signs to set up the parade. So just to alert the neighbors about that. But parade starts at 11 o'clock on the morning of the 4th. That's all I got.
Derek?
Well, I just wanted to thank Robbie and the council for giving me this opportunity to serve for the next 6 months, roughly. Looking forward to it. I'll maybe talk to Linnell or whoever I have to do to get my contact info on the website and all that stuff. And if anyone has any issues or wants to talk about anything, feel free to get a hold of me.
Good.
Well, last Thursday, the park board is recommending moving further ahead on getting a dog park over by Archie Swenson. And now, with what we've approved, it goes to Public Works.
All right.
Just want to congratulate Derek on joining us. That's good. And tonight we heard about Pat Green and expanding in that. It's good to hear of business really expanding. And Mike, congratulations to you. That's it.
Well, I'd just like to say, Derek, again, welcome. Thanks for
Congratulations.
coming up and serving. Mike, congratulations on your new position. I think you'll do well. If you need anything from the council, you know where to find us. And I'd like to thank Nate Watson for stepping up to join the Cannon Valley Trail Board. All these positions are important to the community, so you know, the 7 of us sitting up here and the city staff aren't the only ones that are needed when we get things done in the city. I mean, it takes everybody that lives here to step up to the plate and serve in some capacity sometimes if possible. So anybody that can do that would be great. Saturday, I know the VFW has the summer kickoff party there in the parking lot, so I'll have hamburgers and hot dogs and some food there and a band, so stop on by there.
And raffle tickets for the grill.
Yep, and raffle tickets for a grill. I think they're about sold out.
Are
but
they?
Yeah, but stop on by and enjoy some camaraderie with folks in town. The festival the other day, the Fun Fest, I think went well. I had Fox 9 in the area, and we got a lot of good free press from Fox 9, and we want to thank them for coming into town and covering the Bears and giving a good positive spin on Cannon Falls. So
That was really good PR for the town.
Yep. So thanks to them, and thanks for everybody involved to help get that set up. I know Keith Myers was involved quite a bit also, so thanks to Keith also. And other than that, I have nothing else but to request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.